Yes, it's the best segment of the week. Got your games, got your movies, we got your TV. We got it all in one segment. Crossing the streams here on Chad Dukes versus the world. Let's start with the magic box.
TV.
My guy, Matt Fowler, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. TV reporter and writer for IGN joins me on the WatchChadDukes.com hotline. Fowler, good to talk to you, bud. How are you?
Great. Thank you for the nice Bret Hart intro.
It's much deserved, sir. You're the excellence of execution. I was reading your Gotham pilot review. I've heard this thing's a little convoluted. They are promoting the hell out of it on Fox right now. I couldn't be more excited for the show. Tell me I won't be disappointed.
I have high hopes for the show after the pilot. I think the pilot suffers a little bit from pilotitis, which you'll find with a lot of first episodes. I think it tries to do a little too much in the time allotted. But yeah, I think that they could do. The episode surprised me the most by subverting my expectations. You know, these are characters that have been portrayed a lot over the years in the DC universe, from Gotham. Everyone except Batman himself, although Bruce Wayne as a 12-year-old is a character. And I think the way they portrayed Alfred, some things with Oswald Cobblepot, I think the show's strengths may lie in doing things differently than what we expect.
Was there an injury on the set? Was there an injury filming this thing, a la Harrison Ford in Star Wars?
I don't think it was as bad as Harrison Ford, because star Ben McKenzie was back in production a few days later. He just needed stitches on his head. He was in a fight scene gone awry, and I think his head connected with a pillar.
Good Lord. Talk with me about the Daredevil television show that's coming out. I saw Frank Miller's influence is being taken into account here, and when Frank Miller influences things, generally I'm very, very interested.
Well, I really love Stephen S. DeKnight, who's a showrunner. Originally it was going to be Drew Goddard, but he stepped down and is still a producer on the show, but Stephen DeKnight stepped in. I love Spartacus as a show. Also, Stephen DeKnight comes from Buffy and Angel, a lot of other shows that I enjoy. And he's also really super into the material in the Daredevil comics, and specifically Frank Miller's run on Daredevil. And he really likes the fact that Daredevil, which we have confirmation from both him and the people at Netflix that the show will be a little grittier and darker than the Marvel movies that we're used to, although within the same universe, of course. So what he likes about Daredevil is the fact that he is more morally gray and tougher and a little more realistic than a lot of the other parts of the Marvel universe.
Very much like the character itself. That makes a lot of sense. I know you got your big fall television preview out. You got any shows that we maybe are not on our radar that we should be looking out for?
Well, I mean, we just mentioned two. I mean, one is on Netflix and it's coming next year, but there's a ton of comic book shows coming this fall, and even more in the future. So aside from Gotham, there's The Flash on the CW. You've got Constantine over on NBC. And then Agent Carter, a Marvel show, will sort of fill in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. mid-season gap when it takes a winter hiatus. Other than that, nothing new really stands out to me. I think my credo this fall is sort of stick with what you know. I mean, if you enjoyed Sleepy Hollow and Blacklist last season, they're back. Person of Interest is a big favorite of mine. We've got final seasons going on right now for like Sons of Anarchy, Boardwalk Empire, The Newsroom's coming back. There's a lot of bad pilots out there, so I think there's going to be a lot of casualties here.
Keep up to date on the casuals. Keep up to date on all things television, along with wrestling as well. I enjoy your work in that. It's at the Matt Fowler on Twitter, at the Matt Fowler on Twitter, and then IGN.com. Matt, always a pleasure, buddy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep, it is crossing the stream, so that means we have to get up to date on all things with the sticks.
Video games.
Yeah, my buddy Michael Futter joins me, news editor for Game Informer. And Michael, I was reading about the sales figures for Destiny. They are expansive, $325 million worldwide. We knew this thing was going to be a smash. Is it exceeding expectations?
I think it's hitting expectations. I don't know if we're exceeding yet. I'm sure once the quarter's finished and Activision decides to tell us all about how wonderful they did this quarter, we'll hear about it. But we're talking about, probably in the neighborhood of 5.4 million copies that are in circulation right now. 100 million hours played in the first 5 days.
Wow.
That's an average of 20 hours per person thereabout.
All right, I'm only an hour into the game, and I'm completely overwhelmed by it. Can you be a rube? Can you be a normal person and just pick this thing up and have a good time? It just seems to me there's an enormous amount going on.
Yeah, you can. I don't usually play MMOs, and I just hit level 19 this morning. And that's actually one of the things is I don't usually play games before work. I usually sit down and get right to work. But I've been, kind of squirreling in as much Destiny time as I possibly can. I'm really enjoying it.
That's good.
But yeah, you can play a lot. I think that the first raid that they opened up might take you a little bit of time. It took the first team to finish it about 10 hours of playing. They died 1,606 times
Good
collectively among the 6 of them. So that's kind of a challenge.
Certainly is. I also saw that WWE 2K15 is being delayed. What is the reason behind that?
They're saying it needs a little bit more time in the oven, and it's just on the new consoles. It's just on Xbox One and PlayStation 4. The interesting thing about that is it's now launching for those 2 consoles on November 18th, which I actually just wrote a story about this week, being the killing field for the fall. On that day, you've got Dragon Age Inquisition, you've got WWE on new-gen consoles, you've got Shadow of Mordor on the last-gen systems, you've got Grand Theft Auto 5 coming on Xbox One and PlayStation 4 that day, you've got Far Cry 4, which is just a week after both Assassin's Creed games come out.
That's unbelievable. That's a lot of money. You have to be spending a lot of cash if you're a hardcore gamer on that day. The big story, of course, Microsoft purchasing Minecraft, $2.5 billion. As a guy that's never really messed around with Minecraft, what does this mean for the gaming community?
Not a whole lot right now. What it means for Mojang, which is the company that made Minecraft, is that once the deal is closed, the 3 founders of that, including Marcus Persson, who goes by the name Notch, they are leaving the company entirely. But yeah, this is billion with a B. Usually when we think about acquisitions, we think about one company buying another company. This is more Microsoft buying Minecraft. They're buying a game, a property. And along with that comes the company that made it. They've already said they're not going to pull the game off of PlayStation systems or mobile platforms or PC. All of that stuff is going to remain. What this means for the future of the property is there's going to be a Minecraft 2 that's exclusive to Xbox One. I'd put my money on that. I think Microsoft is going to look to get as much out of this as possible. And they say they're going to break even this fiscal year.
Interesting. You can follow Michael on Twitter at Futterish, and of course read him on Game Informer. Michael, always a pleasure to have you on Crossing the Streams. Thank you very much, bud.
Thanks, Chad.
Yeah, man. All right, finally to the silver screen.
Movies.
Of course, we're winding down. The summer blockbusters have started to peter off, but there's still plenty to talk about. With Sean O'Connell, movie content director for CinemaBlend.com, columnist for Fandango, contributor to the Washington Post. The man is a jack of all trades. And I was looking at what's coming out, Sean, and I've seen about 1,000 trailers for this Maze Runner movie. I'm a 35-year-old man. I've never heard of the source material. I'd be lying if I said I haven't been enjoying the what are the Mockingjay movies, the Catch Fire movies? I forget what they're called.
Hunger Games?
Yeah, Hunger Games. I am digging those. Will this have entertainment value for me if I want to go see this thing?
Yeah, absolutely. My one thing about this movie is if it wasn't coming at the end of the cycle of Divergent and Hunger Games and all of these sort of young adult adaptations, I think we'd see a movie like Maze Runner and think that it was way more original and provocative and interesting, but unfortunately it gets automatically compared to these other films, and rightfully so. I mean, it's part of a genre now, but it's on a standalone film. It's entertaining, and it has a really good story to tell, and has some really good effects work. It's not all practical. They use a lot of CGI to create this maze that these kids are dropped into, but it's much, it's much like Divergent and much like The Giver, which was another one that came out just recently. It's setting up the first part of what is potentially going to be a longer sort of science fiction franchise if the audiences come out and support it.
Certainly getting a big push. The movie that is coming out this week I'm interested in. I'd go watch Liam Neeson paint a wall for 2 hours, a walk among the tombstones. It looks like it's kind of a surreal mystery. He's got a gun and he might throat chop a couple people. I'm excited about that. The formula he's working on works for me, Sean. Are we going to get more of the same with this thing?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And, you know, everybody involved in it has come out to try to tell people that it isn't Taken 4. and it isn't to a certain extent, but it is still Liam Neeson doing more of what now Liam Neeson is hired to do. And it's unfortunate because I think there's a whole generation that doesn't know the serious dramatic work he's done prior, and he's dabbled in a little bit of comedy too. In fact, we have a feature going up on Cinema Blend a little bit later on today. There's all these genres that we'd love to see Liam Neeson try outside of the action genre, because he's kind of proven that he can do this, and he's a stalwart and great. But he's also very funny. He can do historical drama if he wants to. He's an Oscar pedigreed actor. I think he's in a bit of a rut, and Walking Among the Tombstones sort of falls into that rut.
Yeah, and I get it, but if they're going to pay you and it's easy, and he's had some personal loss in his life, I also kind of get it. But I'm with you. It'd be nice to see him stretch his acting muscles again. Wanted to get your thought. Guardians of the Galaxy, the summer's over. I'm looking at the box office. It's still number 3 at the box office. It's getting incredible word of mouth. People are going back to see it again and again, and it's now grossed more than the original Iron Man. It's the highest grossing Marvel film, and they really stuck their sacks out for this one. They took a big chance, and it paid off in tremendous dividends. Not only am I happy about that because I loved the movie, I loved all the characters in it, and I want to see more of it, but hopefully this means that these quote-unquote comic book movies, which seem to be the new action movies, they start taking more chances, because if as weird as Guardians is, it's been this successful, that means other things that are kind of out there can be successful.
Absolutely. And one title I'll point to you directly is Doctor Strange, which Marvel wants to do next, and they wanted to sort of usher in their Phase 3, where they're going to get into the mystical and the supernatural, which I think is very exciting, because if they have Guardians out in the celestial galaxies, and it opens up the doors, because we know Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2 is coming, and James Gunn has said he still wants Chris Pratt to be the only human in the cast, no matter how big the cast gets. So when he adds people, he's going to add really strange characters, which is awesome. But Doctor Strange, and they hired Scott Derrickson to take over that film, and it's going to come out in July of 2016. I think you're exactly right. It's given Marvel the green light from the audience to, hey, you can get really experimental, and we're willing to follow you. And not only are we willing to follow you, but we may power you to these box office successes so that you don't have to keep recycling the same sort of Iron Man cliche over and over again. Even Thor 3, like, you now have the ability to explore some really fascinating realms outside of Asgard and take Thor to some gigantic areas, because they have the budget to spend on the effects. They have interesting screenwriters they can bring in. The sky is the limit in terms of Marvel movies.
It's at Sean_O'Connell on Twitter. Check him out on Cinema Blend. Last one for me. I had Ernie Hudson on the show last week to celebrate 30 years of Ghostbusters, and an even more inconceivable 25 years of Ghostbusters 2. Why do we not have more, just referring to the original Ghostbusters, why do we not have more scary, funny movies, Sean?
It's a tough balance to get right, I think. And I don't know why Ivan Reitman was able to nail that. He had the right cast, obviously. He treated the special effects with the reverence that they should have had. It seems like films that try to do it now either lean too hard on the comedy, or they put too much in the special effects and they forget the other ones. Another movie I point out is The Monster Squad, with the perfect balance of comedy and horror. But listen, we've seen so many other films try it and bomb. It's a tough line to walk.
It certainly is. Great conversation as always, Sean. Thank you for being a part of Crossing the Streams.
Anytime.
Yep, it's Chad Dukes versus the world. It's your entertainment lunchable. We do it every Wednesday at 3:30. We always do.